good evening, and welcome to War of the Wise. I'm Dr. Catherine Daniels, your host. On this evening, we have a very special guest, none other than my husband, Pastor Carl Daniels. Let's welcome him right now.
Good evening, good evening.
Many of you have heard my testimony. You've heard my side of it. But as many of you know, there's more than one side to a story. So today, we're going to get Pastor Daniels to tell his side of it, and we're going to be very transparent. So let's get started. First thing first, let the people know, how did we meet?
Well, we met way back at McDonald's, at the restaurant McDonald's when we was working at a young age.
And so when you saw me, what did you think?
Well, when I first saw you, I knew you was a girl that I would want to be with, but at that time, I was in a relationship. But however, you was a person that caught my eyes, so I knew that I wanted to try to have my opportunity to be with you.
Okay, with that being said, what all did you do to really draw me in? Because if I remember correctly, I kind of ran from you for a while. You were trying to get me, but I remember running. So tell the people what you were doing to really draw me in, to make me yours.
Well, when I first saw you, I had to first get to see what type of person you were. And I see you had a kind heart. So I figured in my mind that to get you, I would have to try to, persuade you, not just by words, but with things. So I used to bring teddy bears to the job. I used to give you like sticky notes and certain things. So that was some of the things that kind of I felt I needed to have.
And y'all, he used to bring me dozens. Red, white, yellow, pink. If there was a color rose, I received it from him. I remember those days. So after we finally getting together and being together, what made you decide that you needed to marry me? Tell your story of that.
Well, it goes back to once I began to bring you teddy bears, roses, and I seen that I was putting a smile on your face. And we both was young at the time, but once I really got into where I realized that I wanted to try to have a relationship with you, I began to do some of the little things. I stayed consistent on doing what I needed to do in my mind to try to be with you. But I knew some of the things that I was doing, how it began to make you smile. There was things, the little things that I saw that I felt that I was drawing you closer to want to, get connected with you.
Okay. So many people, some people may know, but not everybody. So in our story, I don't want to paint it as if we were picture perfect in the beginning. So we had two of our children before marriage. So at what point, see, the way I remember the story was I eventually was like, okay, look, we need to get married. So even though me asking, there are many women who ask their boyfriends or the guy they're with, their significant other, to marry them, and they have children, but they still don't marry them. What made you decide to go ahead and make that commitment with me?
Well, one was you. A lot of what I kept, I was prolonging it as long as I can at that moment being young. And I guess once you realized that you was pregnant, you told me that I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision that either I was going to go ahead and get married because you was tired of playing girlfriend and boyfriend. And so I knew that either I was going to have to get serious or I might lose what I had in my mind I wanted to be with. So that was some of the things because you was consistent at what you wanted. And even though I was older, you made it clear that you wasn't going to continue on doing what we were doing.
That's correct. I remember that story the same way. I also remember my mom and my aunt applying a lot of pressure sometimes. How did that make you feel whenever you would come around and they applied that consistent pressure?
Well, a lot of it was a lot of pressure. Your aunt was more on giving me the opportunity to make decisions that I had to make towards being with you. But your mom, she didn't really want. She felt being I was older that I wasn't the right fit for you, or at the time she saw some of the things at the time that I was doing, you know, my cars or the way that I dressed. I wore earrings, or you know, I used to wear jewelry, that she felt that I just wasn't the right fit for you. But you know, I tried my best to consistently, you know, get a relationship with her so she could know who I was. But your auntie, she kind of gave me the chance and the opportunity to prove who I was.
Yeah. And today, are you glad that I guess some women would call it an ultimatum. Today, would you say that you're glad that I went ahead and applied that pressure and was consistent and stern about you marrying me?
I think it was the best decision because it changed my life. At the time when we got together, we were young. And although I was a good person, I still was hanging on to certain things of the past. I was hanging around certain people. So getting in a relationship with you, being that you at an early age had a relationship with God, helped me to get closer to God. Even though I had God, but I got closer with a relationship with God, and it made me slow down doing some of the things that I was doing. So it brought me in from being where I was in the streets to where I realized that I had to make some changes and commitments. And I thank God because of, you know, the relationship that we have now. It have made me growing stronger to be the man that I am today.
So, along the way, many people don't know the story, and some do. There's quite a few who do know our story. Our marriage has not been picture perfect, but yet we stand, right?
Yeah.
So, I have to be honest. I know that there are some things, even with, as you said, my mom was a little bit more, she pushed against a lot. I love her. She's my mom. And, you know, ladies, let me just say this. Those who love you will always look out for your best interest, even though sometimes it may be harsh the way that they do it. And I never blame her per se on my decisions, because whatever my decisions were my decisions. But do you believe that sometimes through that process, I personally do, that some things that maybe she had done maybe added to some of the stresses, I'm going to use that word, stresses in our marriage?
Yeah, well, it played a big part of what we went through dealing with it, because at some point it was many times that, I'm not gonna say she wanted to control you, but it was many times to where I know she wanted to do things the way that she thought was best because of her, not more of you per se. And it was kind of like the things that we experienced with how she was, it kind of caused a dominant effect, but also in the end it helped because it made me want to more prove to her that I was the right person for you, you know. So that what made me want to be closer, and then it helped me because I understood that, you know, we know what the Bible tells us, that you should cleave to your wife. So therefore, I wasn't married to you at the time, but I knew that if I married you, I know that at some point you would have to kind of cleave from your mother.
Right. And so one of the things I like to tell ladies a lot of times, it's ladies and men, but you know, I normally minister to the women. And so one of the things you have to realize, ladies, is that even though that's your mother, it may be your sister or your aunt, whoever the woman is in your life, you can't take everything that they did to be and make your home work. So I had to realize that I love my mother, but all of her ways would not work in my marriage. And it wasn't until I got that I could then receive my husband as the man that he was. Um, so let me ask you, where do you believe the big boom happened in our marriage, the blow up? What happened, or what did you see? What do you believe from your perspective? What was the thing that made our marriage make this wrong turn?
Well, I think it first started with a lot of times people don't realize that one, it was we were young,
Yes.
and a lot of times we were, I would say, more into the truth is sin, and because we had kids out of wedlock, we wasn't married, and our finance wasn't the best because we were young.
Yeah.
And it played a big part because as we began to have children, the expenses part, and it caused a dominant effect in the relationship. But also, being we was close to your mom, she was sick, and being that she was sick, it took a turn because you cleave, to her more of, being a caretaker, and it began to affect our relationship because being young, being we were just in an early stage of a relationship, you went away from things that kind of played a part. However, I take accountability of my actions, but it kind of had me to be where I felt you, I'm not going to say you didn't love me, but you wasn't giving me the attention that I needed, and therefore that opened the door for me to go back to where I had just come from, meaning back into the world, and it opened the door for things to happen that caused the effect on the marriage, meaning, I began to hang out more, I allowed the enemy to play in my mind, thinking that you didn't love me as much as you were at one point. So it opened the doors for things to come that caused the effect that happened in our marriage.
Yes. So, and I do remember that. I remember that because I remember once you saying, I think you seeing another man. And the truth was, I was seeing another man. It was just Jesus. But because I wasn't there as much, and I had a lot of other things going on, and one of them was taking care of my mom and the kids, and it was just all the stresses of marriage, being a young mom, a young wife. I think that with us, neither one of us having a father in the home, I think that played a big part in the beginning. What do you think about that? I think it did.
Well, it played a big part because not having a father is a big thing, because I really had, I'm not going to say a role model, but I had nothing to look at as something strong, a strong foundation to be able to say, this is what I should do or I shouldn't do. So it played a big part in not really having my father affect my mindset of, I had no guidance, because even in our early stage of relationship, my stepfather, it was many times he was a great stepfather, but it was a lot of times that the things that I saw him doing was things that did play a part of what I took and did some of those same things that could have played a part in the relationship, because not only did he have my mama, but he, when you think of a wife, a girlfriend, and so forth, so on, that's things that you sometimes pick up and say, I might can do it to get away with it. So, yeah, I think it played a big part in not having a father figure in my life.
And I agree also as a wife or a woman, but because I had to see my mother be the woman and the man, it made me, especially by being the oldest, I believe that it made me operate from a place of dominancy, right? So not always giving you the ability to be husband,
Yeah.
wanting to step in and take charge and do things, but because I didn't see a man operate in the home growing up. So I believe that caused me to walk in a dominant role. And I think you would agree to the day, it's an area in my life that I'm still working in our marriage to not be as dominant, because that's what I saw all the time. So now let's talk about a little bit. Our marriage makes this turn for the worse. I believe I know the answer, but I want to ask this question for the audience. Did you think once our marriage made that turn, did you believe that he could recover from it? Truly.
I believe it was able to recover, but I don't think it would have recovered if, because it was a sacrifice we both had to make. I had to make some changes. One of the changes was I had to get closer in relationship with God, because at that point now things turning, I kind of went away from God. And I don't believe if I would have put God back in the situation, I think the marriage would have ended. But because of everything that happened and took place, I was able to go and talk to God and hear clearly from God. And God was saying to me that I need to come back to who He originally called me to be. And that's what made me understand that if I want to save my marriage, I had to let go some things. I had to let go some people. Then I had to do some things differently. And some of the things I did differently was, one, is getting that relationship with God, going to church more, reading my Bible more, feeding my spirit man more, and begin to be compassionate and be able to hear what you were saying to me, because some of the things that you were saying I was in, but it was like I was ignoring too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can agree with that. And I'll take my ownership. Some of the things that I said and the way I said it, I could have said it better. I could have been more prayerful. So I do recognize now that I could have been more prayerful. I could have handled things differently. So I'll take ownership in that, as well, that my communication wasn't always the best communication. Sometimes instead of me coming to you in a way to draw you to hear me, it was more of a nagging or complaining or a fussing way that repelled you versus drawed you. So let's talk about children, because many of you know we have 6 kids. So how do you think, with having children, because a lot of couples want kids or have kids, how do you think that played a part in our marriage, even in our relationship, as we went further and further in our marriage? How do you think that affected our marriage?
Well, one, I always loved children, and I won't say that because of having children, it played a big part of our relationship in marriage, because we was already into things before even getting kids. But what I would say is having kids, it changed the way that you do things, because a lot of times, depending on the children itself, when they're young, of course, they the sweetest things in the world.
Yes.
But as they begin to get older, you see children, especially if you got more than one child, you might have one going one way and the other going another way. So now you got to attend to those children and their needs. And that could play a big part because of how you discipline your children, or the conduct of your children, or what per se. But I believe that for me, it did help and grow our relationship. But as they begin to get older, I think it played a part of affecting some things, because once again, it goes back to at the beginning. we wasn't financially stable.
That's correct.
And not being financially stable plays a big part of a relationship, even a marriage, in being married. So I think it played a big role. But what I can say is, our children also even helped me. I think that made our marriage stronger, because what they don't realize is the love that I had for my children, meaning you. It helped me, but still in the midst of it, because like you say, being transparent, 5 of our kids is by you, and the other is from infidelity. But you know, it occurred due to the fact of when things begin to turn and change. So I think that might have could have had a dominant effect on my other children. You know, because they were young at the time, so they had to realize that mom and daddy was going through something. Daddy then had a child that is outside of the marriage, so I think it played a big part. So even though it helped me to a degree, it could have played a dominant effect with the children that caused some things that later with what we're dealing with now could have an effect with our relationship.
Yeah. I agree with that. In saying that, what is one of the things that we're doing now, I would say, in our marriage that you think help us stay strong in the midst of our children? Some of our older kids still struggling in that area because of what has happened in the marriage. What is something that me and you are doing that keeps us strong in the midst of that, even though our children may be affecting them now?
Well, it's many things that I think we're doing. It always comes back to putting God in it.
Yes.
I think being unified.
That's it.
We unified. We understand where we were then,
Yep.
and we understand where we at now. But what we do having different children, meaning different ages, different sex, and different mindsets. We try to reach them in different ways. However, we can't force them to feel or think how they feel. But what we can do is tell them to understand that when you put God in an equation, because everything comes back from unforgiveness.
That's right.
You know, and being able to forgive. And we know that the Bible tells us that we all have fallen short of the glory. We all have sinned.
Yes.
So therefore, I always let them know that it's nothing that is too big for God to fix. It played a part at the beginning, but now, because most of my children is of age now, so we are, and 2 of them have their own children now, that you can look back at to say, like I had to, that I want to be either a better father or I want to be a better parent. But even in the midst of all of it, you have to put God in the situation.
Amen. I agree with that. We are more unified now than we, I believe, ever been.
Yeah.
And God is the piece, the middle piece that holds us together. He's the glue that has brought what was once broken and shattered back together to be one.
Yeah.
In the midst of everything that has happened. As you may know, I always say, when people ask me, I always say we have 6 kids. I include her in. She's mine just as much as yours. So many people are dealing with the same thing as we've went on our day-to-day lives, and we've recovered, and God has restored us. We both have seen many couples who have an outside child, but they're struggling, Pastor, to walk, the husband and wife unified, the mother on the outside with the child. Give the people some things that you see that work in our marriage that allows us to have an outside child, to not continue to focus on what has happened, but move forward and everybody work united and together for the betterment, one, of the child and our marriage.
Well, first, I would say, you said it right before you asked the question. It starts with communication.
Yes.
You got to be able to have communications on all parties.
Yes.
And the way that I think what help most people that I'm able to minister to in them situations, because there's so many people in them situations, is that you have to have communication with the different parties, but you got to be able to have an open mindset. You have to be able to agree to disagree.
Correct.
You have to be able to come to a common factor of, we're not going to continue talking about the past. We're not going to play the blame game. See,
right.
The blame game is what caused a lot of people to have an effect in that area, and to make it successful, you got to be able to, even with the child, like you say, you don't call her Steph, you mama.
That's right.
She
That's
called
right.
you mama, so you call her daughter. Even in our situation, what helped us is the mama and you have a relationship.
Yes.
She's married, and me and her husband have a relationship. As many times we co-parent. As co-parent, I do my part, she do her part, but even in the midst of it, it's times to where if she can't do certain things, I make an ability of trying to be able to be helpful to her. Vice versa, where it's more of her needing the more help that I do, but I try to be there to help, and that helps in them situations.
So one of the things God showed me in the midst, and I noticed that a lot of women tend to, and I know it's a hurtful situation. If you infidelity and a baby is produced from the infidelity, it can be a hurtful situation. But I believe that it was important to be able to move forward in my forgiveness, in me still loving you without having to, like you say, bring the old things back consistently. One of the important things were for me to allow you to be a dad. How important is that, and how does that make you feel, me allowing you? And when I use the word I allow, because a lot of times the wife, because of her hurt, because of her anger, because of what has happened, she doesn't allow the dad to be her husband to be the dad to the outside child. But for me, not having a father, it was really important that I allowed you to be a dad. If you were going to stay if I was going to stay in the marriage, it was important for you to be a dad. How important is that to you, and what does that say to you? Thank you for tuning into today's podcast of War of the Wives. If you enjoyed this podcast, I ask that you would go and like, share, comment, and please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find it under Dr. Catherine Daniels. Also, you can go to my Facebook page and my Instagram. Until next time, same channel at 7:30 p.m. I hope you have a wonderful day.